So, friend, if you are close to giving up, but you won't say it, I need you to hear this clearly. Can I say something gently to y'all today? You know, some of you watching this, I know you are not okay. You still believe in God, you still show up, you still try, but on the inside, I know you are really tired. And it's not the I need a nap kind of tired, but it's a soul tired. You know, you're not planning to leave the faith. You just don't know how much longer that you can carry this. And you won't say it out loud, but I know deep down that you're close to giving up. You're not saying it loudly and you're not saying it dramatically, but just quietly on the inside, lowering expectations, stopping prayers early, and just numbing out hope. And I want to tell you, my friend, if that's you, stay here because what you're feeling, it's not weakness, it's exhaustion. And the Bible is filled with people who hit this exact wall. You know, there's a kind of tired that nobody notices. You know, you function, you still smile, you respond to text messages, but inside it feels heavy just all the time. And you're tired of fighting the same sin and carrying the same stresses constantly, praying the same prayers, waiting for the same breakthroughs that you keep asking breakthrough for. And you know, the hardest part is that you feel guilty for being tired. And it's because you think other people have it worse than you, or I should be stronger, or a good Christian just, they wouldn't feel this way. But listen to the book of Isaiah in chapter 40, verse 29. Here he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Listen, God does not rebuke the weary. Here's what he does. He actually strengthens them. And if you're tired, that means that you, my friend, have been fighting. And fighting takes energy. So let's talk about Elijah. You know, in the first book of Kings 18, he calls fire down from heaven, and this is a massive victory. And then look at chapter 19. He runs into the wilderness. And then what does he do there? Yeah, he sits under a tree and he says, I have had enough, Lord. Take my life. So in 1 Kings 19:4, this shows a man that is just at the edge. And guess what? What does God do? Doesn't preach at him. He lets him sleep. He lets him sleep. And then he sends an angel with food. And then he lets him sleep again. So before God gives direction, he gives rest. And some of you are trying to fix your faith when what you really need is recovery. And exhaustion just makes everything feel completely hopeless. When you are worn down long enough, your brain starts saying something like this. This is never changing. This is just my life now. And it's always going to feel this way or feel this heavy. But exhaustion exaggerates permanence. Listen to the epistle to the Galatians. Chapter 6, verse 9, it says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So there is a harvest, friends, but weariness makes you think that the field is dead. And the harvest is often closest when quitting just feels simply justified. Let's look at David in the book of Psalms. Let's look at chapter 13, verse 1 through 2. And he says, how long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? That is raw, man. Like, that is straight up. And that's not some fancy polished faith. That is someone hanging on literally by their fingertips. And here's the key in it all. By verse 5, this is what David says. But I trust in your unfailing love. Nothing changed externally, but he chose to stay. You know, you don't have to feel strong to remain faithful because sometimes faith is simply just not walking away. You know, even Jesus had a breaking moment. You know, in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 22, verse 44, in Gethsemane, it says, being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat, it was like drops of blood. Jesus asked for another way. He felt the weight about what he was to undergo, and he was overwhelmed, but he stayed surrendered. And if Jesus felt anguish and still trusted, that means in your exhaustion, you are not failing. It just means you're human. There's a huge difference between rebellion and fatigue. This is what rebellion says. It's like, I don't care. But fatigue is saying that I just can't keep carrying this. And Jesus says in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 11 verse 28, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Listen, he didn't say, "Come to me when you've cleaned yourself up." No, he said, "Come weary." And friends, if you're tired, you qualify for this. The real danger isn't explosive sin. It's just that quiet drifting. You stop expecting your prayers to matter, and you stop reading the scriptures deeply, and you just slowly start to disengage. And I believe that's why the epistle to the Hebrews in chapter 10 verse 36 says this: "You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised." Perseverance may be a little boring, but what it is it's daily obedience, and it's choosing not to quit today. You don't need his grace for the next 10 years. You know what you need it for? You need that grace for today. The Apostle Paul, he wasn't always strong either, even though you might think so. In the second epistle to the Corinthians in chapter 1, verse 8, this is what he writes: "We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself." Yep, that's in the scriptures. Despaired of life. But he continues, "This happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God." Sometimes God allows you to reach the end of yourself. You want to know why? So you finally lean fully into him. When you're close to quitting, people have the habit to isolate, and you say something like, "I'm fine. I don't want to burden the people around me." But you know what? Isolation feeds into hopelessness. And here's what Elijah said. Check this out: "I am the only one left." God told him there were 7,000 others. So exhaustion lies about how alone you are. And you are not the only one barely hanging on, my friend. Let's look at the epistle of James, chapter 1, verse 2 through 4. And here it says, "The testing of your faith produces perseverance. So let perseverance finish its work." Perseverance has a finish line, but guess what? It takes time. And right now, you might feel like you're barely surviving, but heaven sees you building up endurance. And guess what? Your endurance, it becomes strength. You know, what if this moment, this exhausted, numb, barely holding on moment, is not the end of your faith, but the deepening of it? Strong faith, it's not loud, but it's really represented as quiet endurance. It's whispering, "Help me," instead of walking away. So I'll give you 3 things to do when you're close to giving up. Number 1, shrink your focus. So don't think about forever. Just simply think about today. In the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, 22, verse 23, it says, "His mercies are new every morning." You just need today's mercy. Number 2, pray honestly. Your prayers don't have to be impressive or fancy. Just say something as simple as this. Say, "God, I'm tired. I don't understand. And I don't want to quit." And that is enough, friends. And number 3, stay connected. So even if you don't feel it, you need to stay in community. You need to stay in scripture, and just stay in the room, kind of like the one here. Feelings, they fluctuate, but commitment sustains. So, friend, if you are close to giving up, but you won't say it, I need you to hear this clearly. You are not failing. You are fatigued. And fatigued, my friend, can be healed. You are not faithless. You are fighting. And fighters get tired. But God is not disappointed in you. Listen, He is near to you. He is not waiting for you to perform. He is inviting you to simply rest. So don't quit in the valley that you're in, and don't walk away in the fog that you might be feeling, because you are closer to breakthrough than your exhaustion can see. Just don't give up today. Tomorrow will have new mercy. And then guess what? And the God who carried Elijah, who strengthened David, who sustained Paul, who upheld Jesus in Gethsemane, is holding you right now. So stay, my friend. He's not finished with you yet. Blessings.